Welcome to the Her Voice Shines podcast, where we celebrate the power, brilliance, and resilience of women everywhere. I'm your host, Shirley Washington. Join us as we share inspiring stories and insights from extraordinary women who have found their voice and are making a difference. Together, we'll create a ripple effect, illuminating the path to visibility and empowerment. Let's break barriers, shatter ceilings, and lift each other up. In each episode, we dive deep into the journeys of women who have turned their challenges into triumphs and their dreams into reality. Whether you're looking for motivation, guidance, or a community that understands your journey, you're in the right place. Stay tuned and remember, let your voice shine. And whoa, let your voice shine. That's where you landed. It's a Her Voice Shines podcast. I'm your founder, Shirley Washington, streaming in the real hot, always hot Houston, Texas. And I don't know when you see that, but today is August the 5th. And yesterday I became an aunt for the 6th or 7th time. Now, I don't know, I lost count. So needless to say, I'm in a very good and gracious place. And you know, I love this place because it is the best podcast on the planet. I stand by that. Why? Well, one, because I'm the host. And two, because we bring the most amazing women. And today's no different. We have a guest that's going to come to the stage, do our normal drill, which is tell us her name, where she's streaming from. We get the magic of her story. Without any further waiting time, here's my very beautiful guest for today.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shirley Diaz. I am streaming from Washington, D.C., also very hot. No nephews or nieces yet, but I did recently have my first baby. He is now 9 months old. But I want to give you guys some background about me before we get into that. So I'm originally from the West Coast. I'm a California girl, California, Nevada, and Utah even. So all over the West Coast. I grew up in an immigrant family. My mom came from Mexico City to California, where she met my dad, who had come from Venezuela. They met in English school at a community college, and then they had me. So I grew up in a Spanish-speaking household. Didn't really know a lot about the education system here in the United States. Both of my parents went to college, but at their respective countries. But I was really interested in learning about economics and finance after the 2008 recession. I studied economics and then went off to work at one of the largest investment banks in the country, Goldman Sachs, if not the world. And that's where I really learned the ins and outs of personal finance and just macroeconomics and how that works. Decided I wanted to work as a lawyer and help people with their individual finances. So I got the chance to go to law school and work at one of the largest law firms in the United States, working with companies that were being investigated by the federal government for their finances and accounting. And realized I wasn't helping individual people still. I was working with corporations and institutions. So recently decided to launch my own law firm where I am now helping individual people with their finances through estate planning and getting their affairs in order. And that's been really important to me as I had my first child, like I mentioned earlier, because it's so important when you have kids and people that depend on you to make sure that you're planning for what will happen when you're no longer available to help them. So it's very empowering for people to finally get their affairs in order for the first time, and I'm really excited to be a part of that. So I'm very happy to be here as well.
And we are so happy to have you. See, I'm just a California girl out here on this, this old coast over here doing some different things. I love that. And what an extraordinary walk. I've been looking through all of your information, and you have had a really extraordinary journey. That's what I truly believe, because you were a juvenile hall at Goldman Sachs, then you were a big law, and now you have launched your own firm. That's a different walk now, Shirley Diaz. You and I both know it's different when you launch your own thing. Tell me about the specific mindset shifts that had to happen that says that Shirley Diaz is working for these very large firms, but now I am stepping into the realm of doing this on my own. Tell me about that mindset shift and that push to go out to do it for Shirley.
It was very hard to do, and I almost didn't do it because like I said, I was raised in an immigrant household that said you get an education and you get a job. You get a paycheck. Even my parents were small business owners on the side. But they always had a job. It was always like, we have a job and then maybe we have a laundromat on the side, or, we have a job and then maybe we do something else. But having a paycheck was always instilled in me. and it was very rarely, bet on yourself and you will succeed on your own. So I really had fear. I had fear around what would happen to me and my family if I didn't have that paycheck. So it was something that I almost didn't do. But now that I took that leap of faith, and that's what it was just deciding, I I know that I can do it. I know that I'm a good lawyer. I've been practicing for, over 6 years at a great law firm. I got such good mentorship and training. You know, it's going to work. It's going to succeed. And I'm so glad that I took that leap, honestly.
Sure. It definitely was very similar for me, even though my grandparents raised me, my paternal grandparents. And even though my grandfather worked for a good piece of his life, at about 30 years, he owned an auto mechanic shop in Houston, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And even though that was his thing, even with him going out and doing this thing that provided for our family, he still told me, you need to go to college, you need to, get a good job. And that was his goal for me. And I had to look back, and I had to tell him here recently, and he's 81 years old. He'll be 81 in October. And I told him, like, you didn't realize, and I said, and you probably never knew that I would ever have this conversation with you. I said, but I don't know what you thought your business was, but to me, in my eyes, it's very successful. It was very successful. I am a product of that. It provided for us for decades, literally. So maybe, when you gave me that advice, you had never really understood your own strides. And I wanted to thank him for that, because I didn't even realize when I was climbing the corporate ladder that I would end up in this space. I just recently left in 2021. To me, it's still recent because it's everything is still fresh and new. I didn't really start walking it out until 2022 because I took a year off, which is something, Shirley, I'm very, very grateful for, because many people never get to do that in life ever. And that was the most transformative part of my life. You would never have gotten that version of me had that part never happened. And even though it was very, very hard. I wanted to hear, because it was two words that I wanted to make sure I highlighted, because Shirley Diaz just told you that she is a mother, but there's two words that follow it. I'm a single mother by choice. That is what she told me in her form.
Yes.
Think about that. How did becoming a single mother by choice influence you operating in Diaz PLC?
Yeah, so I had gone into my 30s in a relationship which ended, and then I knew I wanted to be a mother, and I knew that I wanted to have children before I turned 35, just because of biology and the ease that it comes with that. And so doing the math, I said, by the time I meet someone and would be ready to start a family with someone, I think it might be too late. And so I just had to, again, just make a decision similar to deciding whether or not to open a business, similar to that, where it's like, do I commit to doing this now, or do I want to continue to wait and see if I meet someone? And decided I didn't want to leave it to chance, and I wanted to be a mother. So I went to my OBGYN and I told her, I want to have a kid on my own. How do I do that? And she referred me to a fertility clinic here in DC that works with families or people that want to start families. I think half of their clientele are single women, and the other half are couples with fertility issues. And so I began that journey. And it was, by the time I went to that first meeting to the time I was holding my baby, was probably 3 years. So it is a journey, because you never know how quickly or how long it will take to get pregnant. You have to pick a sperm donor. You have to go in for testing. It's a very long process. And I knew that, which is why I made the decision as early as I could. And having a child and being the only parent means I'm the only one available to pick him up from daycare and to care for him. So if I had stayed in my corporate law job, which is very demanding, you're basically expected to be available 24/7. I knew that I couldn't give him the quality of attention that I wanted to when I got home. It would be something where I'd be on my laptop or on my phone even though I'm with him, and that wouldn't make any sense. So that was another impetus for starting my own law firm, so that I could have more control over how many cases I'm taking on and what my hours are. So that was also very important to me when I was picking whether or not to start my own firm.
Mm-hmm. So I love it. You got a power of choice thing going on here. You have a power of stepping out and believing things to be true and calling those things your own. And I had to highlight that because a lot of women, because it's always career, 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 but there are like some other choices that women have to take. You have the power to choose. We're not saying that
Yes.
the power to choose is going to be easy. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
Shirley said it was 3 years before she got that baby in her hands from when she started.
Mhm.
So I'm not talking about, all of the gloriousness of, oh, yes, I want to be free, I want to do this. I'm talking about the power to stick to it, even when that yes and that choice is something that you really want. But my God, it's not always easy to get. So I have to highlight those little pieces because there's so many women here that get stuck by their choice. And then when they make the choice, they think, oh, it's going to be glorious. And all of the stars are going to align and all these things are going
Yeah.
to be magical. And that's just not always the case. So thank you, Shirley, for stepping up and taking those choices. And even when those choices that you really wanted were hard, Shirley throwing a towel. And that's really why this
Mhm.
podcast really exists, to amplify moments just like that. Now let's switch over here to this law firm, girl. Don't call it a little law firm because I believe in my heart it's a big law firm. Okay, I want you to I want you to go here because estate planning, and this is something, even from my background and what I know about my family, is always looked at something for the ultra wealthy. Oh, you have to have all this
Mm.
money to estate plan. Tell me about
Mhm.
how you're making this approachable for millennials and Gen Z and really shifting their mindset, because many of them, if I go ask people in this age group, they're also too
Mhm.
going to give me what I just told you is for the ultra wealthy.
Yeah, and this was a mind shift that I had during law school when I was learning about what estate planning was. Because once I had my baby, I knew I had to do my estate plan because I had that legal training. And I think the everyday person obviously doesn't have that legal training, so they think this is just for the ultra wealthy. But the purpose of the estate plan is to protect anyone who depends on your income as an initial matter, but also it's for you to know what's going to happen with all of your assets when you're no longer here. Now, in my case, the triggering event for me to make my estate plan was when I got pregnant with my son, because like I said, I knew I was going to be the only parent. So I really had to protect the baby because I would be the only person that he's depending on. So I made sure to get life insurance and I made sure to set up a trust that he would be the beneficiary of. So if anything ever happened to me, the life insurance payment would go into that trust, and it's immediately accessible for the future guardians to just pick up and start taking care of the baby. And now, if nothing happens to me before he turns 18, which is what I'm hoping that will happen, then the trust will be there for when I'm, much older and I pass, of old age. Then it's an easy way for him and any future kids that I might have to quickly get access to their inheritance. I think anyone who's had a loved one pass away, even if all they had was a one-bedroom apartment with things, you understand how difficult it is to try to get access to the checking account, anything that they had, so you can pay for the funeral. You have to like jump through a lot of hoops. People are not just going to give you access to someone's bank account, and you have to go to court and the probate process if they only had a will and didn't have a trust. So it doesn't matter the size of your estate. Estate literally just means everything that you currently own. And it could even just be your own body. What's going to happen with your body? Would you like to be buried? Would you like to be cremated? These are all things that we would write down during the estate planning process. So even if all you have to your name is a penny and yourself, you could still benefit from an estate plan. And the beauty of it is almost everyone, once they complete that estate plan, they feel a sense of ease because they didn't even realize that they were going to be leaving their loved ones with such a complicated situation. And especially after the death of a loved one, there's a lot of mourning that has to take place, a lot of grieving. And it's a gift to your family member and to your loved ones if you've already planned everything in advance and you've made arrangements so they can go through the grieving process without having to think about, oh my gosh, well, this person was the one paying the mortgage and now they're gone. So, and we don't have their paycheck or we don't have their income. So what are we going to do? Oh, look, they had a plan. They had life insurance paying into this trust, and we are now the beneficiaries of that trust. So like our lifestyle is completely unchanged and we can grieve in peace. Or, we're not sure how this person would have wanted for her pets to be taken care of. If you have dogs, if you have cats, who's going to take care of them, or what's going to happen with them. These are all things that can be planned for ahead of time. So what I also want is for people to understand that if you don't have a plan in place, the government has automatic inheritance statutes. So your money could be going to someone who you no longer have a relationship with. And that might be fine for you, or that might not be fine for you. And if the government can't find out anyone, then the government's just going to keep it. So that's another point. If you don't want to leave everything to the government, you might as well have your own plan in place. But it is truly very empowering to know that you have an estate, that you have a trust set up, and that when you pass, your family is going to be probably, either the same or even better off than they were before. So I always encourage anyone, especially if you have children, if you have dependents, even if they're pets, talk to a lawyer, think about getting an estate plan together. And it's more than just writing out a will. It also includes setting up who is going to make healthcare decisions for you if you were ever incapacitated. So that's another thing. The estate plan is not just for when you die. It's also what happens if you're in a coma. What happens if you're in a car accident and you can't make medical decisions for yourself, and you can't access your bank accounts because you're not mobile. And who's going to pay your rent or your mortgage or your bills at that time? If you have a trust set up, you can set up someone, you can name someone, designate someone who, if you're incapacitated, you're in a coma, you're not mobile, they can step right in and continue paying your rent and continue paying for everything that your kids need. So that's another very important piece of it, is it works even if you're incapacitated.
I love that. And I think it's the education piece. And that's why what you do is so important, because many people don't know that it's multiple facets, really, of that particular thing. All I think is the financial piece. And one of the things you said it was so important, and of course I can definitely relate to it, is that when someone dies, that mourning is enough. That grief is enough. I mean, and it just depending on it, if it's really sudden. And then I went through this really heavily when I was 27, and my aunt passed suddenly at 43, a sudden death, and left 3 children behind. And I'm going to be honest with you, that was, you have a lot of life moments, but then you have like about 2 or 3 good pivotal moments that really changed. And that was one that shook me to my core. There are still days I can't put my mind around it, still today, 12, 13 years later. So, when you talk about that, I know that personally, how hard that was for us to navigate, to figure out things around the children, to figure out things around the house, to get all of the stuff out of that, on top of just trying to grieve and stand to our feet, literally. So, guys, it's super important. I want to go here because I know that your services, they really blend, I think, bilingual and like educational components, and I really love that about it. Tell me really about how your culture really kind of played a role in your business growth, because I think that's such an important aspect to have, because I feel like it's meet people where they are business model. That's truly how I feel about it. But I wanted from your words, really how this played a role in your business growth.
Yeah, well, I mean, at the moment, a lot of people in the Hispanic community who are undocumented are very fearful about what will happen if they are to be deported. So an estate plan can also trigger when someone is deported. So a lot of people have businesses, they have homes, they have U.S. citizen children who are in the country. So they can set up guardian elections, like what's going to happen to the kids if I'm, arrested or deported, who can take control of my business, who has access to my U.S. bank account. So these are all things that can be accounted for. Like I said, it doesn't just trigger when you pass. It can also trigger if you're ever arrested. It can trigger if you're in the hospital and you can't make decisions. So there's a lot of triggers, and right now for the Hispanic community who falls in that category, that's been a really big one. People are writing powers of attorney and making plans to be ready just in case. So that's one piece. But also for the U.S. citizen Hispanics who have businesses that are now thriving, a lot of people don't understand or don't know that they should have these things in place. So for example, if you're in business, no, it doesn't matter what your background is, if you're in business and you have a business partner, do they have a plan in place? Like if you depend on this other person for your business to function, you need to know that they have life insurance, that they have a trust in place so that if some accident happens to them, you are also protected and that you also have access, not you personally, but that you know who will have access to their bank accounts and to their savings or whatever the contingency plan is so that your business can continue to move forward. And that's something where a lot of Hispanic small businesses that are starting to grow or become even mid-sized businesses, a lot of the work is done, in families. And so you want to make sure that the whole family has a plan. They can be separate plans, but you want to know how they work so that the business is protected and continue to move forward if something were to happen to any one of those family members who are partners in that business. And so it is a lot of educating the community on that, and a lot of telling people not to put this off until they're older. And that just makes it worse because then you know that your kids are pushing you to get an estate plan because they're just waiting for your to inherit things. And you don't want to be in that position where now you're making your kids having to ask you and to bug you to get it done. So I think one of the best gifts we can do is to get it done early. You can do it before you even have kids or when your kids are little. So it protects them the whole time when they're underage. And then that way too, once they're adults, they don't have to have that awkward conversation with you about, do you have a plan together? Do you know what we're doing? So that's another thing I'm really educating the community at large about so that they can have their affairs in order now. Because of course, no one thinks they're going to die, and that's great. I think we should definitely, have a positive outlook, and we're all going to live a very, very long life. But there's certain things that we just have no control over, and we really just don't know. And the best thing you can do to protect your family is to have your plan together, and that's the responsible thing to do.
Yeah, sure. And unfortunately, I'm in an awkward conversation phase now, and it's definitely, yeah, it's one of those things. Yeah. So we said, I was like, yeah, we're kind of going over here, we're kind of taking these papers over here, like, you don't really want to seem pushy. Like, I'm not trying to force you into any decisions. Like, I'm not telling you what to do, but I just need to know I need to know what you want so that I can execute and do it. I don't care what you do. Just tell me what you want so I can get the thing done. And it definitely gets very tricky when you have to start initiating the conversations. And that's why we have to start early with equipping people with knowledge so that, they don't have to wait till, their parents are elderly or all these, because you might not be fortunate enough to even have the conversation. Like you said, we don't think that anything is going to happen to us. And we should be optimistic. I believe in living in optimism. But at the end of the day, life is still life. And those conversations do have to be had. I want to go here because I want to talk about your experience being a Latina woman in law. I know you've had some experiences. I know it's probably has not always been easy to see a peer or navigate the space. I want you to tell me about that walk and really what encouraged you to keep showing up. I've experienced, throughout most of my corporate career in financial services. I was a global finance manager for quite some time. And it was very hard. Pretty much 7 years of my career, I was working at an Australian company. They had a U.S. presence. And for the entire time there, I never had a peer manager that looked like me that performed on my level. Never in 7 years. Not one time in 7 years, Shirley Diaz.
That's a long time.
Did I ever experience that in the duration of working? So I just wanted you to talk about that experience because we have several, or most of our audience are actually women of color in various shades. And one of the things I encourage them to do, and really why this platform exists, you have to stand in who you are no matter what. It's who you were created to be. And I want to hear your intake and your process for doing that.
Yeah. So the Hispanics in the legal profession represent less than 2% of all lawyers. And we know that nationwide, the Hispanic population is inching towards 20%, if not more. So we are severely underrepresented in the legal profession. And so are Black lawyers too. So, but I'll talk from my experience. It starts at every level. I mean, to get a law degree, you first have to go to a 4-year college, and then you can go to law school. So it's a 7-year educational journey where, like you said, there's going to be very few people who look like you. At the collegiate level, we're starting to see more enrollment numbers just because Most high school age students, especially in on the West Coast, are highly Hispanic populations. It's like the majority of the children in high school. But even at the collegiate level, we're not seeing the representation there and among the professors. So it's really about how do we even get into these schools if we don't have, sorry, my light is turning off. Okay, I'll be in the dark. So you go into college without understanding how to even get into law school, and you're not really sure who to ask because um, there isn't the representation or the guidance there. And then you get to law school, and it's really like there's like a club. Almost all law schools have the Latino Law Student Association, and it'll be like 5 people, if that. You're lucky if it's like 5 people. And so it's really a lot of students leading students. It's a lot of like whoever's the third year law student leading the second year law student, leading the first year law student, versus like having professors or deans or actual lawyers telling us how to navigate the space and what to do. So it really is sticking together and helping each other out and helping the next class level up so they can find a good job. And then, of course, you enter the profession, and like I said, it's 2% of lawyers. I mean, I'm barred in the state of Nevada, which has a Hispanic population of 25%, and the legal profession is like 90% white, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with having a mentor who's a different background as you are. But I think everyone understands that it's so much easier to strike up a conversation and to develop a relationship with someone when you have many factors in common, including a shared cultural background, because you can just feel at ease and you can feel like yourself right away. So it's just um, it's difficult because of the lack of representation and role models. But I will plug, there is a great organization called the Hispanic National Bar Association. It's the national organization of Hispanic lawyers, basically. I sit on their board as in the board of governors, and they have great programs starting at the high school level. So if you know any high schoolers who are interested in going to law school, have them look that up. And if you yourself are, in college or working and you've been thinking about going to law school, you can reach out to those bar or associations. There's also the National Bar Association, that's for Black lawyers and law students. So I'll plug that organization as well. They have great resources, and that's kind of like the concentration of where you're going to find all of the lawyers of color in one place. So like once a year, there's a convention for the Hispanic National Bar Association, and I go every single year, and like that's where I like really get in my mentoring and my like, how can I get tips on how to move forward and how to advance. So it's kind of like a once a year opportunity where you're just like surrounded by all the other Hispanic lawyers, and it's wonderful. And then the rest of the year, we're kind of like out on our own in our satellite locations and doing our best to stay connected online and through social media. So that's really the thing, is especially when you're in a corporate law firm, like you mentioned, you were working in a large finance organization and you didn't have a manager for 7 years. I mean, that's very likely to happen in a corporate law firm as well. Um, and of course, the problem with that is if you don't get the mentorship and sponsorship and buy-in from the partnership level, or at least someone very senior who can advocate for you, sponsor you, give you great cases, teach you what the unwritten rules are, there's no way for you to find out what you're supposed to be doing versus what the official policy is of what you're supposed to be doing. And sometimes by the time you find out what all the requirements were to get a promotion or to get specific projects, it's a little bit too late because everyone else who had been being mentored by the actual partners is already steps ahead. So I think that perpetuates that cycle as well, and where they're saying like, oh well, we didn't have enough qualified people, or we didn't have anyone to choose from, but that's because people are not being mentored and raised up to be prepared to progress to partner or to progress in the organization. So there's still a lot of work to be done, but there is a lot of opportunity out there. A lot of clients nowadays speak Spanish or have employees that speak Spanish, and there's a need for lawyers that have a lot of language ability. So I definitely encourage anyone who's listening, who's been thinking about going to law school, to reach out to me on LinkedIn. And I'm always happy to talk to people who are interested in going to law school, or just reach out to one of those national bar organizations and do your research and apply if you're interested.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. And that just basically hones it on the power of community and really finding one that you really and truly can thrive in. And I think I'm not mistaken, I think I have a friend. She may be a part of the local African American bar here in Houston, for Black lawyers. And so I wanted to make sure, I highlighted that. And yes, one of the things that you said that was very, very important about the system really perpetuating itself is those internal allies and advocates. It's so incredibly important. I can only remember I'll say twice early in my career, then kind of towards the latter part, I did have one particular ally. And I do believe that in that organization that was, of course, for one, a foreign entity trying to, operate in the U.S., it was like a different kind of level of minority there that probably would not have existed within an American ran company. So it was a lot of different layers there. But she was my ally. And I really believe that sparked my managerial career there. I really truly know that in my heart, had she not been where she was at the time, I would have probably not gotten the managerial seat and just kind of kept growing from there. So thank you for sharing that. So many of you that are looking to grow, make sure that you're aligning with mentors, aligning with communities that can help you get there. Because I'm telling you, you definitely need someone who knows the ropes, that has gone ahead of you, and go off of their knowledge. You guys know I'm a knowledge and wisdom seeker. I will go sit at the feet of someone to learn and grow if I know that it's going to make this particular journey. I'm not going to say it's going to make it easier, but it helps me navigate it from a different place. So take that advice, Julie, from Shirley. Now, we've talked about your wonderful law firm throughout this entire podcast, but I want this segment to be very clean, that tells me the one to three lines, about your law firm, the overarching goal, and then give us your connection points, whether that's your website, your socials, whatever you want to have for connection point. I want to give you a clean segment to do that.
Perfect. So my law firm is Diaz Vidales PLLC, and we create estate plans for the everyday person and everyday professional. And we can be reached at diazvidales.com. And we're also on Instagram at Diaz Vidales Law. And if you want my personal Instagram, I also post a lot there. It's at ShirDiz. It's like my first and last name smushed together, SHIRDIZ. For anyone who you know, or even yourself, that's been wanting an estate plan, we're servicing California, Nevada, and Washington, D.C. at the moment.
Well, listen, Shirley, I can tell you, I am so happy you came. I'm so happy about you and your journey. I'm incredibly proud of you for everything that you're building. And this will be a big law firm. So when you come back and watch this in a couple of years and you have this as proof, and I told you so, you'll have, I tell people, you'll be able to look at this, in a year or two and come back and say, what, she put it on here and she said it, to the people, and here it is happening. I say I'm like a prophet a little bit. But I want to make sure that we give this to you. We say this is our final thoughts segment. We cue to our guests for final thoughts. We ask them to give us some great parting words for the space that we shared, and really something that captures the essence of Shirley Diaz. I'll cue you for final thoughts, and I'll be back to close the show.
So, sorry, do I do my final thoughts now? Sure. I wasn't sure if he was like queuing.
Yeah, sure. It's for you for final thoughts.
Okay, final thoughts. So thank you so much for having me. My final thoughts are, if you're thinking of going to law school, please do it, especially if you're a woman of color. We really need the representation. It's our rule of law is at stake, so we really need as many voices to get involved. And if you have anyone who depends on you, who depends on your income, or just someone that you really love and want to protect, the best gift you can give them is having your own affairs and your own estate plan in order. No matter how small your estate is, it's important to someone. So you should have it in order.
Absolutely. And let me tell you guys out there in the Her Voice Shines podcast, man, what a fabulous 34 minutes. I took this lady over 34. It didn't feel like it, though. It was a great conversation. 34 minutes I spent with Shirley. And I really hope this place that did what we said it did, let her voice shine. I tell you guys, miraculous things happen when you do just that thing that is let your voice shine. And like the people say in church, I love you, ain't nothing you can do about it. And I'll be back with another amazing woman really in no time on the Her Voice Shines podcast. Until then, we're out and we love you.